Okay, I'll call our Finance Committee meeting to order.
Mr. Chairman, I move to add as item 5 for approval and moving it to the full commission, a leak adjustment request for Baymont Inn and Suites.
I'll second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, all right, our agenda is approved. We added item 5 on the approval list. Having no public comment, we'll move into item 1, which is the minutes of May 20th for the Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I have no changes to the minutes. I move to accept the minutes as written.
Second. Comments, questions? All in favor? Okay. Move to item 2 is our executive session minutes.
How much on the piece of paper?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the executive session minutes.
Second. Comments? All in favor?
No comment.
Dennis, I have your.
Yeah, that seemed like a very confidential.
Item 3, surplus equipment inventory. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Burrows.
Yes, sir. As part of our ongoing look through our assets and our inventory, we've determined that we have 3 push cameras that can be surplused. They have various malfunctions, more with the electronic issues. Most of them have some color issues or flashing issues on the actual screen. So the recommendation here would be to surplus these 3 push cameras, and we'll put them out on GovDeals to determine if anybody would like to purchase them. This will just clear it off of the asset list.
I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend that the full commission review and approve the above referenced items be declared as surplus and disposed of in the manner most beneficial to JWSC.
I'll second, and question or two before we vote. Just for my understanding, Andrew, is how many cameras do we maintain in our fleet of cameras?
We have 2 CCTV trucks that have 2 separate cameras on them apiece. One of them is a lateral launch camera that's a little smaller diameter that can go up in a 4-inch lateral. And then we have the main camera, which is on wheels and more of a robotic that goes down the line. It has a cable on the end of it. We have a handful of these push cameras that we can go in from the top side of, say, a lateral and come back down if our lateral launch machine won't go far enough. And we have some that we stick down in manholes so we don't have to get all the way down in there. So altogether, we've probably got, between the CCTV cameras and the push cameras, 6 or 8 cameras total.
Okay, and a push camera is just one that has the camera on the end of a cable.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So I'll call a question. Any other comments or?
Can I ask one, how long did these stay on the surplus site, website? Are they just stay there forever? Or?
No, we don't put them up there forever. We'll put them up there for usually 30 or 60 days, depending on the item and whether we think there'll be a lot of interest in it. And then if there's not any interest in it at that point, we'll scrap it. We're going to try to sell it and see if we can get some funds back.
Yeah.
If you go on GovDeals, there's a lot of stuff on there that probably should be scrapped.
I was going to say, it's not a good place to hang out, I don't think.
Okay, I'll call a question. Those in favor? Aye, passes. And we'll move to item 4. Andrew?
Yes, sir. This is the approval for the Lift Station 4003 SPLOS project in the city of Brunswick. We solicited bids and received 5 bids back for that project, which will include new pumps and piping, a new odor control system, and a new wet well at that facility. Low bid was Petticoat Smith Civil Contractors out of Jacksonville at $1.99 million. That is under budget, and the anticipated project duration is 240 consecutive calendar days. You'll notice a pretty good gap there between Petticoat Smith and the other providers. We have spoken with them and made sure they were firm on their numbers, and they are satisfied with the bid as submitted. Most of the difference in price was in the installation of the wet well. However, there was one other contractor who was actually cheaper on the wet well than they were, so there does not appear to be any imbalance issues.
What kind of wet well are we gonna get?
It's a 12 by 14 pour-in-place concrete wet well that will be lined with calcium aluminate.
This is immediately adjacent to the existing station.
Right. The existing wet well's on the north side of the station. We're going to pour a new wet well on the south side of the station, and then fill the other wet well with sand and drill holes through the bottom of it so water will drain out of it.
Entertain a motion?
Okay, I make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend awarding the contract for the Lift Station 4003 upgrades, 2016 SPLOST Project number 703 to Petticoat and Schmidt Civil Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $1,998,690.
I'll second that. Any comments, questions?
I do have another question. I didn't catch the alternate total bid. Are we gonna do that alternate at all?
No, sir. The alternate was a different manufacturer of the odor control unit, so they're the exact. It was just replacing one type with another. So the lower bid was the base bid. So the alternate is not being accepted.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
No, I was gonna vote.
Let's vote. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And then item 5, leak adjustment for Baymont Inn.
Yes, sir. Baymont Inn Suites had a leak last year, pretty sizable leak, and according to ordinance, anything over $2,000 must come before the commission for approval. You see the calculation there on the sheets behind. This also adjusts off any late fees that were incurred due to the leak. So the total value of the leak adjustment is $2,653.38.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Finance Committee recommend approval of the leak adjustment in the amount of $2,653.38 to the account of Baymont Inn and Suites, and to forward this item to the full commission for approval.
and I'll second the motion. Questions or comments, please? Hearing none, we'll cast a vote. It passes. And now, discussion. Roberts, self-funded health insurance update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, you may recall at the May 20th committee meetings, staff presented a proposal to transition our employees from a health insurance coverage that's fully funded to a self-funded plan. This is something that's been in discussion for some time within our organization. The full commission did vote at the May 21st meeting to go ahead and move forward with that proposal. So I just wanted to give you an update as to what had been accomplished since then and what our next steps are going forward. So we have started the process of updating the plan documents and the summary plan descriptions. We're working with our partners at TSI to do that. We've opened a new period of open enrollment that started back on the 9th of June. On the 9th and the 12th, we had meetings with our employees. We were a little bit creative with how we had to do that because of the COVID-19, so we did those via conference call, actually. Ms. Daphne Gable from TSI came up here, joined me. We had employees conference in groups of about 25, 30 employees at each individual meeting. We had 30-minute sessions where we did a question and answer session and also a presentation by Ms. Gable so she could explain to them what the self-funded insurance was about, give them an opportunity to ask any questions about the open enrollment information that they had received. Got great response from the employees, so we were very pleased with what had transpired through those meetings. TSI is contacting everyone who is on a flexible spending account. One of the reasons they're doing that is because we are truncating our current plan year. It was supposed to be a 12-month plan year, but because of the fact that we're now moving to this August 1st date, there will only be a 5-month plan year between March 1st and April 1st. So she's letting them know what their options are as far as spending the money that they've already had withheld from their paychecks, what's going to happen going forward, things of that nature. So she took the opportunity to contact them individually. That's 19 participants who are impacted there. So I appreciate the personal touch that she gave there. Our next steps, working forward to finalize those open enrollments. As of 4:30 yesterday, out of 146 eligible employees, 77 had fully completed their new open enrollment. 9 had begun but not completed it yet, and then 60 had not started. So we reached out to our superintendents and managers and tried to move those 60 forward to try to get them more toward the completed end, because we are still targeting that August 1st date.
I can't remember my password, so I'm sorry.
No, yours, Mr. Burrows, yours is completed. I've checked you off the list. You're good. You're good. So we want to finalize those open enrollments. And then this coming Tuesday, we have a WebEx with our United Healthcare representatives and TSI. We'll be working through some of the administrative processes, the payment processes, how we will pay administrative fees to United Healthcare, how we'll pay claims on behalf of the employees, those types of questions that we'll work through just to cross those T's and dot those I's.
Okay, do we have
Sir.
any objections by any of the employees?
No, sir. Everyone, once we explained what was happening and explained that their deduction was not going to change, their coverage was not going to change, the only thing we were asking them to do is reconfirm that the choice that they made back at the first of the year was still the choice that they wanted. And it actually is a benefit to the employees in a couple of different ways. One, if they chose a deductible amount and wanted to use a different plan this time, for instance, if they chose the $1,500 before and wanted to move to the $3,500, this was an opportunity for them to do that where they wouldn't have had that on a full 12-month plan. And also, as an organization, we made the decision that for the deductibles and for the out-of-pocket limits, we would go the full 17 months, meaning the 5 months since the March 1st, and then the 12 months from August 1st to the end of next July. So instead of the employees being negatively impacted by only having a partial plan year against which to incur their deductible, they have that full 17 months now. So once people understood those two pieces, they were certainly open to the fact that we're making these changes for them. And I stumbled a bit there. Did I make that thought clear? Were there any questions on what I was trying to describe?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The biggest questions that people ask were, are you charging me more? Which the
Right.
answer was obviously no. And do I need a new insurance card when I go to the pharmacy?
Exactly.
So we told them, you'll have the same number, but you will get a new insurance card. And in the interim, it shouldn't be any problems. So those were the two main questions that we got. We did also announce the no smoking and
Thank you very much.
BMI
Yes, Mr. Burrows.
stuff for next August. And we have had some employees that have shown interest in trying to do some of the cessation or weight loss programs that United Healthcare offers. So
Absolutely. And that was one point that was very important with us in meeting with the individual employees, is making sure that they were aware of that transition in the next 12 months, because we wanted them to have some time to react to that. Any questions?
Excellent.
Good
Fantastic.
report.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Encouraging.
Chairman. Thank you.
And then we have the final item on the agenda for today is the financial statement ending May 31st.
Afternoon, Commissioners.
John, this is your swan dive, right?
No, actually, my swan dive takes place a couple weeks from now.
Well, for me it is, because this will be the last report I think you'll be giving at this scale. So up to you, all yours.
Okay. It's going to be brief. Starting with the balance sheet, one thing that I wanted to point out was the first line of cash and cash equivalents is almost $3.4 million at the end of May. And I'll circle back to that number in a bit. You'll see that our bond sinking fund is larger. At May 31st, $3.4 million. On June 1st, the bond payments are actually made, so that's decreased significantly. Then moving on to the schedule of cash balances, the next page, you'll see under the elective reserves established by the JWSC Commission, it now shows at the bottom that it shows a group insurance reserve. This was previously the expansion reserve that was renamed and to cover the self-insurance. There was sufficient cash in the investment accounts to transfer that money back over and refund or fully fund that through with an account at BB&T. That money still earns interest at BB&T, but that's separately funded.
Very good.
And moving on to the next page, which is the combined revenue statement for the 11 months ended May 31st. You'll see in the year-to-date actual column, the net revenues before capital fees and SPLOST. The actual amount is 1.16 through the 11 months. Probably almost $600,000 of outstanding encumbrances, which at this point of the year, some of those are not going to be liquidated by year end. And we don't carry those over from one year to the other. If it's not spent within the fiscal year, it closes out and a new purchase order has to be issued against next year's budget. And then projecting from those numbers, we're looking at $1.5 million using a pro rata, well, using percentages as far as the customer revenues and a pro rata for the expenditures for the year. So by year end, we'll be somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million, or should be, in revenues over expenditures. So there will be some year-end adjustments, of course, during the audit process that will affect that number. And there's apparently a sizable inventory adjustment pending for the water division. After Ms. Crosby and her crews have gone through and counted that and sorted out the inventory that is of little use or of no use.
Have we finished the inventory down there?
I'm not sure if she has finished it or.
It's being loaded and should be live on storeroom on Monday, so they should be able to have that adjustment next week. They gotta get it loaded and then they'll recount everything, confirm what's in there.
You say an adjustment, are we gonna book that this?
Yes, so we'll have to bring the inventory number down to the actual value of the inventory.
It should be less than the adjustment we had to do last year, just from the value of the inventory being about half what the value of the sewer inventory is.
Okay.
Is it a lot of stuff that we don't need anymore that's being written off?
Yes, sir. We have a lot of stuff that was transferred over by United Water when we were formed, that stuff still on the books, but we don't have it anymore.
And then on the other side, we're looking at an adjustment to the allowance for doubtful accounts, which is the estimate of the accounts receivable that will not be collected. That number right now is about $800,000, going by the formula of the 5% for the 30 days and so on. It looks like that number will have to be adjusted down, which through the mechanics of the adjusting entry shows a recovery of bad debt on the financial statements, which is an income item. And that may be relatively sizable at this point, depending on where our accounts receivable wind up at the end of the year. It's not really cash income, but it's reported as income in the financial statements.
Well, did we ever get money from the school board yet?
Yes, sir. We were paid the full amount.
Back in late November.
So that would cause an adjustment down. We've already done that adjustment.
Yes, that's already been done.
Okay, so this will be another adjustment.
Yes.
And what's the cause?
And as, pardon me?
What is the cause of this other adjustment?
It's the adjustment of the allowance for doubtful accounts. Usually, as normally accounts receivable go up, which causes the allowance to go up. But as our receivables have come down, that allowance also comes down, which forces.
Okay, so we haven't made that adjustment.
We haven't made the full.
allowance.
We haven't made the full adjustment for that because of uncertainty about where we may wind up at the end of the year with the accounts receivable due to the COVID thing.
What's our frequency for making those adjustments on an annual basis?
The allowance for,
I mean,
That's
for
usually,
booking it, actually.
that's usually done on a monthly
monthly
basis.
basis. Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the standard entries that our senior accountant makes every month.
Okay. So we really just have only 1 month in doubt. And
Right now, yes, yeah.
based on forecast, we should have a reasonable level of confidence of where that is going to land,
Yes, yes.
right?
Yes, we have a reasonable loan.
Okay, thank you.
Based on, going back to the balance sheet where you see the large the increase in cash of about $875,000, because should be showing a excess of revenue over expenditures from the income statement, there is sufficient cash to possibly make a transfer to one of the other reserves, or or make another restriction to cash at the end of the year at the commission's decision.
Okay.
Then finally is the very last page of the report, which is the reserve balances for, and again, with the expansion reserve did show up in this list previously. We've since removed that because it's been redesignated for self-insurance. We have the capital reserve, repair and replacement, and then the capital tapping fee reserves, which total about an undesignated, or a balance available to designate to new projects of about $7.2 million in total.
Okay, so if I had to summarize this very briefly, is the value of the utility has increased because of the capital investments we've made in the fiscal year. Our cash reserves obviously are sufficient for us to continue business. Our forecast for the fiscal year end in this month is on a positive note, even though we've had some uncertainty since the
Yes, sir.
beginning of the calendar year. So all that said, in my view, what it reinforces is very good execution on the operation of the company, such that it generates financial flexibility for us. So when we have uncertainty, we can still land where we plan to land.
Yes, sir.
And in my view, that reinforces to our consumers, our customers, because again, we look forward another year and say, we're not increasing the rates. And so, it's thank you to the entire team, from everybody who's on the crew to all administrative staff, is that we're just about to close out another fiscal year, and it's a very, very positive story. Thank you.
Yes. And the organization is in good financial condition.
Well, John, thank you very much for what you've done. It's been my pleasure to work with you for the last couple of years and get to know you, and appreciate what you deliver and your stewardship and mentoring to your team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other item?
Only other item I was going to note was that we did receive the official signed copies back of the GFA loan. We had signed those at the last meeting. GFA has returned their copies signed, and the origination fee is due by January 15th, which we are more than prepared to pay, so we can start drafting that account as soon as work is available.
Very good. Commissioner, anything else?
Good news.
Okay, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you all.